If you look at globalization, globalization has happened, and now much of the action is going to be in China. I thought it was interesting that your institute's going to go into Vietnam. We see tremendous potential in Vietnam. We've taken a group of MBA students from SMU to Vietnam this May for 2 weeks. Vietnam is taking a lot of play away from China. China in this global marketplace is getting very expensive in terms of its labor force. We had a day-long conference 3 weeks ago on the SMU campus on where the global marketplace is going over the next 20 years. And like Atlanta, we have a lot of Fortune 500 companies, big companies headquartered in Dallas. It was a day-long conference, and we had the CEOs of AT&T, Texas Instruments, and Kimberly-Clark, each for an hour on the program, giving their assessment for their industry, where they see the global marketplace. At the end of the day, you came away and said, I got to find a way to do business in China, and then I got to think about India. That's the future. There are 400 million middle-class people in China now who want everything you want. In 2009, they will sell more than 400 million cell phones in China. China has become the largest marketplace in the world for electronics. Soon it will replace the United States as the largest marketplace in the world for auto sales. China has surpassed the United States in terms of the number of students in college. There are 19 million college students in China today. There are 18 million in the United States, and in 10 years, we'll be at around 20 million, and China will be above 40 million. China will become the education, knowledge leader, and India will pass China over the next 20 years. So the global marketplace is there, but an awful lot of the activity is going to be generated over there. Tom Falk, the CEO of Kimberly-Clark, talked about the rapid escalation in the wage scale in China. 2 years ago, they were hiring college graduates for $12,000 a year. This year, they had to move that up to $24,000. He said they're being beat out now. Companies are offering $3,000 a month, $36,000 for college grads. The average for the college grads who graduated in the United States this past spring was between $31,000 and $32,000. The Chinese aren't going to come over here and work for us anymore. They're going to stay in China and develop a very prosperous economy. So you're taking your programs there. You may be taking your activities there. It is the future as I see it. I think economic policy, we're going in the wrong direction. You don't increase the size of government and raise taxes when you have a very fragile recovery, or we could repeat the mistakes that happened in the Great Depression. Demographics, it's much harder for immigrants to come into the United States again. Our domestic marketplace over the next 20 or 25 years won't grow anywhere nearly as rapidly as it did in the previous 25 years. And finally, the debt financing, the money party is over. People need credit. I talked to some of these builders this morning. They complain about the banks they're dealing with. They say they take 6 weeks to approve a loan. And yeah, it's the way. I remember the first mortgage I ever took out. I was working at the University of Georgia. I was 28 years old. I had 2 kids. And it took me 6 or 8 weeks to be approved. I needed letters. I needed documentation. I needed to put 20% down. We're going back to that kind of way. And so all of those forces are going to slow the economy down long term over the next 20 or 25 years. Now, good news, and then we'll have a few questions, I hope. I've got a handout there. The first 2 pages should be in, you're probably sitting on it. First 2 pages are on India and China. And just to make the case that those markets are huge and are rapidly prospering. But if you go to page 3, I had a map somewhat like this last year, but I've revised it. And Bernie, you need to move to Dallas. Now California is a black state. And I'll use California as an example. California is running, they're a very progressive state. They're running ahead of most of us, 5 or 10 years. So if you want to see what big government and high taxes will do, take a good hard look at California. Because California's economy, in my opinion, has gone too far, and I'm not sure it can ever come back. Going back to Plato and Aristotle, and then Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, they cautioned about the tyranny of the majority. They cautioned about the people on the bottom of the pyramid overwhelming the people who are actually earning the money. When the Bush tax cuts expire, the end of next year, the top half of American wage earners will pay 99.2% of the federal income tax. The bottom 50% will pay 0.8%. We are almost getting to the point where we have half of our population with no skin in the game. That is very dangerous. I think what California has gone, California in the last 4 years has lost 2.5 million middle-class people. You see all those red states? People are renting the U-Haul, pulling it up to the condo or the apartment, putting everything in, and they're driving out of California by the boatload. California in 2008, as a state, had a net loss of 164,000 people. This year they'll lose between 250 and 300,000 people net. Those numbers, it's just going in that direction, but I've been watching these things for a long time. I've never seen them come back. And what you have, when the middle class moves out, to get elected in California today, you have the tyranny of the majority. The majority don't have skin in the game. So how do you get elected? You got to say, take some more of Bernie. He's making a lot of money. Take another piece of Bernie. And that's the philosophy that has set in California, because most of the people moving in are poor people who are going there for the social welfare services. Middle class is moving out, and the rich are staying because the weather's great, and they say, hi, I don't care. And so what you have, if you lose the middle class, you kind of lose it. And that's why over the next 20 years, I see California depopulating, losing jobs, income. I may have told this story last year, but 3 years ago, Governor Schwarzenegger hired Bain to come out and do a study. And they surveyed every company headquartered in California. And 40% of them said they would leave as soon as it was economically feasible. And 2/3 of them said they were moving their headquarters to Texas because of taxes. They raised the marginal income tax rate this year on the upper end to 10.3. Corporate income tax, California is now 10. Corporate income tax in Texas, 1. Personal income tax, 0. We had 16 publicly traded companies so far this year move their headquarters from California to Dallas, just to Dallas. Houston's probably getting as many as we are. And this is kind of the world as I see it. So in your business, the best states, long-term, this is 20 years. Short-term problems in Georgia. I know your industry is depressed. The residential industry in Georgia is depressed. Georgia actually underperforms the U.S. economy for the next 2 years for the first time in history. But for the next 20 years, I'm bullish on Georgia, North Carolina, and especially Texas. I think those are the big three in terms of winners. And, you know, notice how many all the black and green states are underperformers. You know, I grew up in Boston, and I was, I guess, maybe a little bit colored watching all the industries moving out of the Northeast and moving to the South. And so I lived through that environment, and I wrote my PhD dissertation at the University of Connecticut 40 years ago at the age of 25, and it was a macroeconomic history that addressed all the economic reasons you had to get out of the Northeast. And I believed my own BS and took a job at the University of Georgia, stayed there 28, and now 12 in Dallas, Texas. I've been living in 2 of these red states. I've never seen such a small number of winners and such a large group of losers. And even in the Sun Belt, you've got now pockets of bleak outlook in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. Arkansas is not looking so hot. The rules for the future are, if you're much more than an hour and a half from a global hub like DFW or Hartsfield or LAX, you got to be there. And that's why many of these Sun Belt states that have low cost of doing business, they have everything except the airport. And the future of globalization, you got to have the airport. So, Greater Atlanta looks real good. Time left for a few questions? Well, question is map of the world. Next year, I do map of the world. But no, it's pretty simple.